Comedian Steve Treviño is America's favorite husband, and he can speak wife fluently as he knows better than to make his own decisions, since that decision making is a privilege reserved solely for his wife, Renae. Well, he is one of the country's fastest rising comics, viewed over 220 million times, selling out shows coast to coast, amassing over 2 million total social media followers, and headlining specials for Amazon, Netflix, Showtime, and others. Also, he has a podcast, Steve Treviño and Captain Evil, now in season 3, that he co-hosts with his wife Renae, whom he lovingly refers to as Captain Evil. Well, it now has over 1.5 million streams. So, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, let's welcome the man who can bring the funny, with his wife's permission, of course, comedian Steve Treviño. How you doing today?
I am doing fantastic. I'm a little under the weather, but that never stops me. I always tell people it is a mindset that you have to have. Every day I wake up and I love life and I love being a comedian. So life is easy, and all I got to do is walk on stage and report to the people what my wife does to me weekly, and they pay me to do it.
Well, I'm going to ask you something because you're from Texas. I'm from Texas. Where in the world is Gregory, Portland, Texas?
Very near Corpus Christi, Texas. We are a little, well, it used to be a little farm town, and now every refinery in the world has made my little town of Gregory, Portland their home now. So we're starting to look like Baytown. I mean, it's getting crazy over there. But when I was there, it was just a little farm town, and I traveled the world several times doing stand-up comedy. I've traveled this country, gosh, probably almost a million, and I ended up with a girl from Gregory, Portland, Texas. My wife is from the same town.
That is crazy. Now, Steve, where did you first learn about stand-up comedy?
I was watching. My folks would always have barbecues on Fridays and Saturday nights, and the men were always outside and the women were always inside. And all of a sudden, everybody was inside laughing their heads off. And I look around the corner, and they were watching a guy named Richard Pryor. And I remember thinking, like, oh, you can make people laugh for a living. I must have been 7, 8 years old, and that's when it all began for me. But when you are from Gregory, Portland, Texas, you don't even know where to begin. There's not a comedy club for a 3-hour drive, whether it was Houston, San Antonio, or even Dallas. I had never even stepped foot in a comedy club, but I knew that I wanted to do stand-up comedy, and I that's what I did.
Well, was it? I mean, how no? I know what it's like to be raised in a small town in Texas, where a lot of people don't realize that you can leave and go see the world, and a lot of people have that trapped mentality of being in a small town and thinking, "I'm never going to escape this place." How were you able to leave a small town like that?
Well, you take the small town with you in your heart, and in your soul, and the morals and the things that you learned in that small town with your parents. You always take that with you, and I will always be a little boy from Gregory, Portland, Texas, and knowing that you can see the world and see the country, and really decide to do whatever you want, as long as you keep that little town in your heart and in your soul. It'll always be my town, and I still have friends there that I grew up with from elementary school, that will always still be my. I mean, I go back and do Winfest, and that's our little fair, and I love to go back and see all those people. But I think you just take the small town with you.
Well, and I think too, by taking the small town with you, it works well for your stand-up routine.
Well, you know what? Funny you say that, because at first I thought, man, I got to go to LA. I got to go perform at the Comedy Store. I got to be LA, and I got to be what all these other comedians were, and I started to quickly realize that I was not them. Here I was in my cowboy boots and my Wranglers and my shirt, my ball cap, and I started thinking, these guys aren't me. And once I started to really go back to my roots and really talk about, wanting to be a husband and a family man, that's when things really clicked. So I learned the skills of stand up in the streets of LA at the Comedy Store, but all the morals and all the things that I learned at home all got married together on stage, and that is why I think I have become very successful.
Well, who are some of your comedic mentors?
Well, early on, watching guys like Richard Pryor or Eddie Murphy or Sam Kinison or even Dice Clay, who I'm proud to say, knows my name and we know each other, as I got older, and we were just talking about it, me and my wife, guys like Jeff Foxworthy, guys like Ray Romano, guys like Jim Gaffigan, guys that I see have a wonderful stand-up comedy career, but also have a great life outside of stand-up comedy. They're happily married, they're raising their children, and they don't live in Los Angeles. And those are the guys that I admire. I remember meeting Rodney Carrington, who's from Oklahoma, and he doesn't even know this, but he has a Christmas party that I crashed and got invited to. And I remember looking at this guy's house and his property and thinking to myself, wow, this guy is doing all of this from Oklahoma. So once I started to really go back to my roots and really go back to, hey, I don't have to be that LA single chasing women guy, man, things really kicked off for me.
Well, I also understand that you bring out the Mexican American culture in your stand up, but you make it very relatable to everyone. How did that happen?
Well, as a Texan, and I'm so proud to be a Texan, and you know as well as I do that the culture here is just so married and so merged, and we put brisket in our queso. That's exactly what I am. I am brisket in queso. So I try to walk on stage and really represent the Mexican American in a way that is positive and something that young Mexican Americans can look up to and go, hey, that guy's like me. He's a Texan. He loves his queso, but he loves his brisket. And I have tons of pride for number one being a Texan and number two, being an American. My father served in the Vietnam War, and I want to make sure to represent us in a way that we are not being represented in TV, in the media. We're always the gang member, the valet parker, the maid, and I hold my head up high and say, hey, we are not that. My father is a welder, pipe fitter, Vietnam vet, hardworking man. My mom's a hardworking woman, and we were not on welfare, and we did not cross the border. The border crossed us, and we're very proud to be Texans and Americans. And I think it's a perspective that we haven't seen before, and I'm proud to be the one to bring it.
Well, and I applaud you for that because I personally think that the Hispanic community is still underserved in media. Sure, there's Telemundo and all of that, but overall, from what I've been seeing lately, I still think it's very underserved in today's society for multiple reasons that I'm not going to touch on to. But, I grew up watching a lot of the sitcoms, and one of my favorites was Chico and the Man, Freddie Prinze.
Sure.
The guy was freaking brilliant, but to me, it's almost like he was the Hispanic version of Robin Williams. Literally goes off script in a second, and it just makes you laugh and cry at the same time.
Well, and ultimately, I want to be treated like an American. I get so tired of being treated like I just jumped the fence or I'm an immigrant. I'm not an immigrant. I belong here. I am here. My family's been here, for generations. And to treat us, I get so frustrated when they go, Steve, and Henyo or whatever just won an Oscar, the director, the lighting guy. You should be really happy. I'm like, no, dude, that guy's Mexican. He's from Mexico. I am not from Mexico. I want to see the Mexican American be represented, in a way that the Black American is represented, and now gay America gets represented way more than people go, Steve, are you offended by what happened on the movie Lightyear? There was a lesbian couple. I go, I was offended that they're still not a Mexican American couple. we got skipped over again.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. But I mean, I was looking at your bio, and You wrote for Carlos Mencia, one of the funniest men out there. You've done work with Pitbull's La Esquina. How did those projects come to be for you?
I was Mencia's opening act for years and years and years, and when he got Comedy Central, that TV show, I was invited to write for that show, and then from there, I got invited to help Pitbull Armando write for his show, and I mean, you want to talk about a guy who sees this country exactly the way I do. Pitbull is a patriot. Pitbull loves America. Pitbull will tell you all day, why don't you go to the countries where we come from? If you don't like this country, go to the countries where we come from and see what it's about. And so I have been lucky enough to work with juggernauts like that and learn from them as well and just see the world through their lens and write for them. And ultimately I think that everything that we do in life leads us to the position that we're in today. And had I not gone through all of those ups and downs and being able to write for guys like that, I don't think I would be where I'm at today.
Well, when it comes to being a comedian, and besides all of the jokes, how important is timing and maybe even the facial expression without saying a word to make people laugh?
Oh, I use my face all the time. And that's what we call it, mugging, right? But I always say that as a comedian, you have to use, the reason that it takes so long to get very good at what being a comedian is because you have to be able to use all the tools all at the same time. And like you said, timing has to be there, right? The inflection in my voice, the look on my face, the delivery, the way that I'm holding my body, the way that I'm holding the microphone, all of that has to come together to really get the biggest laugh possible. And it takes a really long time to be able to do that. But I use everything in my arsenal. If I need to make a face and I just, and I get that extra laugh from a look I make on my face, it's gold.
Well, how did you practice those things in the beginning? Was it going to open mic night? Was it standing in front of a mirror or both?
No, open mic. I mean, I took a very blue collar approach to stand up, and I told myself that I would outwork everybody. My dad taught me the importance of work ethic and working hard. So I told myself, I'm going to get on stage more than everybody. I'm going to do stand up more than everybody, and I'm going to be better than everybody because I'm going to outwork them. So yeah, it was any open mic, and I hear young comedians now, they go, "Oh, I don't do that open mic anymore because they don't pay," and I'm like, man, I did every open mic. I never asked, when somebody asked me to open for them, I didn't ask how much money was I making, where am I going to stay. I just went and I did it because I knew that it was a savings account, and I knew that every time I walked on stage, if I didn't get paid, someday I would get paid all that money back. And that's what's happened.
And see, that sounds like the early days of Jay Leno. And the comedians that you say, "Oh, no, no, I'm not going to do open mic night." That sounds to me like an entitled millennial trying to do stand up and thinking that they're going to hit the $1 million payday the moment they step on stage, and they're an idiot.
Well, the first thing they do is they go and get a headshot, right? They go get a headshot, they build the website, they start to TikTok, and I'm like, and they go, people come to me and they go, Steve, every video you put out there gets a million hits. Why? What are you doing? I go, well, maybe I'm good.
Well, Steve, I've got to ask you this question. How did you learn to speak wife?
The funny part about that is I didn't realize that I had learned the language over years of abuse, right? I thought, because time goes by as in your marriage, and you go, man, I can read this. I know exactly what this woman is saying, right? But I met this young man after a show because I meet everybody after my shows, and this young man who was married walks up to me and he says, "I would like to have a drink with you." And I said, "Well, I'm going to go across the street to the casino. I'm going to have a drink." I said, "You're more than welcome to join me." And he goes, "I'll be there." And then I said, "Maybe you should ask your wife." And then he said, "No, my wife is cool." And I go, "Oh, you just got married." He goes, He goes, how did you know I just got married? I go, because you think she's cool. So then he looks at her and he says, babe, can I go with Steve to have a drink at the casino? She looks at him in the face and she starts to speak wife. She goes, you can do whatever you want. And this dummy goes, told you. And I go, oh my God, you don't speak wife. Like, I do not do whatever you want. What she really said, let me translate. What she really said was, if you would like to act single, I can arrange it. That's
Oh
what she
my
really said,
goodness. You know,
right?
my wife, she asks me every now and then, she goes, why don't you ever tell me where you would like to go eat? I said, because in the end, it's not a battle that I really want to get into. I don't do drama.
It's not, yeah, it's not worth it. Tell me what you want to do and let's do it, right?
Exactly. You know, I'm going to be married 35 years in the next few months. And I'm like, after a while, you've been there, done that. What difference does it make?
She wanted to plant these orange trees, and I told her, I said, in order to plant these orange trees, you need a huge pot. I've done this before. My mom is the one that brought you the orange trees. I've grown up growing these orange trees. I know what to do. So she comes home with this little pot for the orange tree, and I don't say a word because it's like, you know what? Go for it, right? I've already told you. So then the one that hurts me the most, her dad comes and he goes, what are you doing? You need a big pot. And then she goes, oh, okay, daddy, let's go get a big pot. And I just go, why does she treat him with the utmost respect?
Oh
And
yeah,
me,
oh yeah. I can feel a little bit of that, but what is even funnier to me is that you have this very popular podcast, Steve Treviño and Captain Evil, and so I want to know: do you run all of your jokes by your wife before performing them in front of an audience?
no, I'm lucky. I have an amazing wife and she has a great sense of humor. And by the way, I think that is a huge part of our marital success is the fact that we both have a good sense of humor. We both love to laugh and enjoy life. And, there's only been one time where she has asked me not to do something. And that was me being very graphic about us having our child. So she was like, that's kind of gross. Don't do that. So, I've been so lucky to have such a supportive wife, and again, I think it's a formula for success. I think people see that, in my podcast, my wife and I are very real, honest, open with our relationship, and I think we're over the celebrity. We're over the perfect celebrity that walks around telling us who we should be and how we should be, and acting perfect. People love to see this very imperfect, perfect marriage, and it's really taken off.
Yeah, and I like the way you say that imperfect marriage because not there isn't a perfect marriage anywhere on this planet, and as husbands, we're never given a manual at the very beginning.
No,
You put
no,
the
and,
you
and
put the ring on, and you're basically thrown into the lake and told how to swim on your own.
well, and it's funny because people do come up to me for marital advice, and I tell them very simply, try. That's it. Try. Are
That's
you
it.
trying? Yeah, that's it. Are you trying? Is she trying? Because if you're trying and she's not trying, it's not going to work.
Yeah, and
But
I think
if
yeah, and one of the things that and I've had this conversation with other people, and the major word in marriage is listen. Listen and respect, and don't jump to conclusions. But hey, we're guys, and that will happen. And every day's a new adventure being married.
And,
So,
well, again, learning to speak wife, right? Figuring it out, understanding what she means and what she wants. And the other day we were at Universal Studios in California, and I said, "Hey, I said, are you going to meet us here?" And she goes, because we had separated, and she goes, "Well, I have the stroller, I have a baby, I have the backpacks." I go, "Why don't you just say, 'Come help me'?"
ah, there you go.
Because I know how to speak wife. I'm going, oh, this is her way of saying, come help me. So I'm on my way to help you. you
Yeah.
know.
Well, it's not only learning how to speak wife, it's also learning how to interpret that language.
That's exactly what it is. I need to write a little coffee table book, right? That when she says do whatever you want, she's basically saying this, right? When she says when she says I'm hungry, that means that you are to take her to go eat immediately.
Yes.
You know, you don't answer the question when she says I'm hungry. You go, yeah, me too, and then you just keep going. No, she wants you to stop what you're doing and get her to get something to eat, right? If she says, "Is it hot in here?" That means get your ass up and turn down the AC, right? It's simple.
Well, I know one thing. You need to write the book, How to Speak Wife Fluently, and I think it'd be a million bestseller.
I think so too, and we've been so lucky that I do get to continue to do exactly what I love and people support it. It's awesome.
Well, Steve, how important is it for us to poke fun at ourselves?
Oh, we have to, right? And I think that again, um, it shows humility. It shows your ability to open up your heart and your soul, and that's admirable, you know. And we live in a world now of TikTok and Instagram and Facebook. Everything is through a filter, you know, and nobody is ever vulnerable on their Facebook, on their Instagram, and we are conditioned to see that everybody else is living this perfect life, and they're not, you know. So I think that by poking fun at myself and my wife and our relationship, people can relate to it and go, "Oh wow, mine too." You know.
Yeah, and and I was watching a lot of your stand up and I was watching other comedians do their routines. And I've heard comments from other comedians saying that it's becoming very difficult to be a comedian in today's time. But really, it just really based on their routine and based on the subject matter that they decide to choose. Because your routine and your subject matter to me is a great safety zone in today's time.
Yeah, you know, and I mean, I do believe that we have the right to say whatever we want on that stage. Comedy is subjective. You know, I defend my brothers and sisters in comedy that they should be able to say whatever they want because we live in a country that has freedom of speech. And again, comedy is subjective, but I'm very lucky for me that the content that I choose to cover is me, my wife, my family, the things that I go through. But at the end of the day, I'm not afraid ever at all because I know where my heart is. I know who I am. My fans, who I call family, know who I am. And ultimately, there's only one person that can cancel me, and that's my wife. And as long as I'm good with my wife and God, I'm going to keep moving forward, and people can get over it.
Yeah, and I agree with that, Steve. And should comedians in general should they be canceled at all, or I still believe in the First Amendment, and I think that should cover comedy.
Absolutely. And at the same time, look, there's several comedians who are friends of mine who I don't find funny at all. I think they're gross. I think that they're disgusting. I think that their sense of humor is very dark and miserable and unhappy, but other people find that to be entertaining. And that's their right to go and find that kind of humor entertaining. You know, I mean, we have comedians in this country who sell out arenas who do nothing but crap on this great nation of ours. And for some reason, people think that it's a good idea to go support them and watch them and get behind them. I don't agree with that guy. I don't agree with the fact that he walks on our soil and completely craps on our beautiful country. But hey, he has the freedom to do that in our country, and he should be able to do that.
Yeah, I agree with that. And but one thing I love about you, Steve Trevino, is family, wife, great, clean humor that we can laugh. We can laugh at ourselves. And you bring it forth in a way that, especially for the husband, especially for the wife, we can laugh at ourselves. We're like, oh, yeah, I've said that. Oh, I've done that. And you make everything so relatable to everyday life.
Well, and the goal, and you know, a lot of people don't notice this about my act. Everything in my act, my wife is wrong, but she's also right. I am wrong, and I am also right. You know, so I'm I'm wrong in going to her and saying, hey, stop speaking wife to me. Just tell me what you want. But I'm also right in saying that. And she is right in saying, look, I'm trying to be nice to you. I don't want to be bossy to you. I'm trying to help you with a suggestion by speaking wife so that I don't have to be the boss of you. But at the same time, you're wrong because just tell me what you want and be the boss. So, there's a real balance in my act. And I make sure that there is a balance in my act where, we are both very strong and it's an equal fight in the act. And it's not one-sided. It's not just me, being aggressive with my wife. She gives it back and I give it back. And it's a real portrayal of what we go through on a weekly basis.
I love that. And also, too, your podcast, Steve Treviño and Captain Evil, that's available on all digital platforms?
All digital platforms, from Facebook to YouTube to Pick Cherries is a new app that my wife and I are a big part of. You can actually go into a podcast and pick that cherry 1 minute and share it with your friends. So it is a new technology that my wife and I are owners of part owners of Pick Cherries. So we just had the idea that you got to be able to grab a clip and share it. So now you can.
I absolutely love that. So what is next and what's coming up for Steve Treviño?
Oh man! Next, I got to get up and mop the house, and my wife never mops. No, on a career thing, we just keep doing stand up. We're doing theaters now, and I try to travel with my family, and we continue to do the podcast. And people ask me, they say, "TV show on the way, movie on the way." I'm like, "Oh well, if I get offered that, absolutely." But I am extremely happy putting food on the table and a roof over my family's head, telling jokes all over the country. So that's what we do.
Well, where can all of my viewers, all of my listeners find out more about you and your current tour?
SteveTreviño.com. And I have relatives that text me and go, hey, what time is your show in San Antonio? And I go, by the time you asked me, you could have asked Google. Or you could have gone to SteveTreviño.com. But I know what they're doing. They want free tickets. So I just go, yeah, I got you. Don't worry.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you one thing, Steve. You were so popular that by the time they ask you, the show is probably sold out.
Well, that's what cracks me up. They go, I'm having trouble buying tickets. And I go, 6,000 other people did not have trouble buying tickets. But yet here you are with trouble buying tickets.
Well, Steve, you got a fan in me. And I know that all of my viewers and listeners who don't know you by now, they will. And ladies and gentlemen, you've got to check out Steve Treviño and Captain Evil, the podcast with Steve and his wife, Renae. You will laugh. You will just love every minute of that podcast. But not only that, check out the tour on SteveTreviño.com. Buy tickets. Support Steve and his stand-up comedy. Because look, we all love to laugh. And why not laugh with a proud American and one that brings family to the masses? So, Steve, again, thank you so much for honoring us with your time and your presence today.
Thank you, guys.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, Steve Treviño. Again, go to SteveTreviño.com and stick around. I will be right back with more.
Are your sinuses sensitive to everything? Do you suffer with seasonal allergies? Are you ready for this year's pollen season? Primrose Leaf's Breathe Q Plus supports sinus and respiratory health, balances the immune system in hypersensitive individuals, promotes normal mucous membrane function, and clears nasal passages naturally. Primrose Leaf's Breathe Q Plus. Call them today at 844-376-0007. That's 844-376-0007. Or go to primroseleaf.com. It's time for you to breathe easy.